viewers. Welcome to episode 7 of COVIDCastJA. We hope you're keeping well. Episode 7, which means that we are at about week 9 of COVID. Today, we're talking about keeping workers motivated and productive while at home. You know, our culture is a culture that we like to see you. You must come in the morning, and some people pride themselves on coming in very early in the morning and getting themselves together because we consider work a place that we go to, not a place that happens at our house. So it's been quite a bit of getting used to for us as workers, for us as managers, for us as leaders of business, as we try to fit into what is the new norm. So it's not business as usual. In fact, it never will be business as usual again, because we're going to have to get ourselves into a place where we're nimble and we're agile and moving with the times. Today, we have some exciting guests with us. We have Nevada Poe, who is also the lead architect for the PSOJ Access to Finance project, a project which has pivoted to take into consideration some of the issues that have come up as a result of COVID. We've talked to the bankers, we've talked to the government about the CARE plan, and we hear 250,000 checks are being delivered today. We have also talked about the impact, the legal and regulatory impact of persons now working at home and the various issues with redundancy and layoff during this unprecedented time. So working from home has really created a whole new set of challenges for managers and workers alike. I mean, it is a completely different way of operating, and working from home is also now coupled with schooling from home. So today we're going to be joined first by Nevada Poe, and then we're also going to be joined by Lysandra Rickards, who is CEO of a very interesting organization called Soul Career, and she'll tell us a little bit more about that. We'll also be joined by Dr. Carolyn Hale, who we will introduce properly also later on in the show, but she is an HR dynamo, someone who has seen Jamaica through various iterations of what work looks like, and she's going to be talking to us a little bit about that. So let me invite Nevada in at this time so we can jump straight into our conversation. Nevada.
Hey, Rochelle.
How are you doing?
And they haven't thrown us off yet.
we understand the whole concept of working from home. We both operate our businesses and work from home. Yes. And in fact, as I speak to a lot of people, and I find now that I'm coaching a lot of people through the whole process of working from home, because it's just this new paradigm that should I get dressed and walk down the hall? Should I get dressed to go and sit at my dining room table and work? Am I really at work if I'm at home? Yes. So for managers and workers, this whole at-home situation, it is important that we create some kind of routine.
Absolutely, yes.
How to create a routine? I mean, we're not used to this. This is not what we're trained in school. You went to Harvard, I went to UWI. At UWI, we know that we go to work. And I know at Harvard, they teach you to go to work.
You go to work, right. And somehow we often feel when we're at home, we can just crawl out of bed and go right to the computer in the pajamas, right? And barely take out the mat out of our eye. No, as you started to say, Rochelle, I remember when you started to work from home, where you spoke to me about some of the things that you do. And it is really critical that you get up at a certain hour. Don't just sleep till you get up at a certain hour and you go bed and you put on something like work clothes. No, it doesn't be nothing formal, but you cannot get out of the pajamas, sit down at the computer and say you're at work, right? Don't stay in sleepwear all day. Critical to have change, to create the mindset that I was sleeping at home and now I'm at work at home, right? Where possible, and I realize, some people don't have a big house, but where possible, you want to create a particular area that you call your work area, where there's the dining table or a little corner or somewhere that you actually go to after you've showered, gotten ready, brush your teeth, get the coffee, and et cetera, et cetera. And don't get in the mindset of, especially for those who live alone, be like, we can't bother brush my teeth, can't bother thing. No, because you won't move into work mode until you actually do the morning rituals and then actually go and sit at a work area.
Yeah.
And then once you've sat down, outline your goals for the day. What would you like to accomplish that day? So it gives you clarity of focus. This is what I'm trying to do for this particular day. And then you sign in, right? We recommend sort of whatever signing in, letting your boss know, the other workers know, etc. I have now started. Also, at the end of the day, you have to sign out. I am now done. I don't want to hear from anybody. Moving forward for the rest of the evening, I have my kids, I have my this, I have my that. At this particular point, whatever time that is, I am now signed off. We also recommend having specific breaks in the time. There's a real temptation because you're at home, right? You're checking Netflix, you're looking at the news on the phone, the COVID news. Every minute you go onto the fridge to look to see what is in there where nothing don't change, right? So schedule in your mind, I'm gonna have a break at 10, I'll go have lunch at 12, I'm gonna have a break at 2. Therefore, you keep your day structured because you would not be going to the fridge every 10 minutes if you were at work. Yeah.
Okay, I think that's a very important point, Nevada, for us to just spend just a little time on. But for our listeners, if you do not currently subscribe and get our weekly memo that goes along with the show with the information that we're discussing, if you're not on the list, you're not going to get the memo. So please get yourself on the list, and you can email us at sme@psoj.org or leave your email address below in the comment section. But I would just go ahead right now and email us at sme@psoj.org. What we're discussing today, the information we're discussing, is a part of the memo. So it's something that you can take away and have a good look at while you rewatch the show. So Nevada, what you've touched on is this whole concept of boundaries, because I think that's an area that we struggle with when we are working at home. What is work time? What is is there a shutdown time when you're working at home, or is it a boundaryless time? And can I make decisions to say, well, I won't work in the day, I will work in the night? Or is that a function of how my organization operates? Can you touch on that a little for us?
Yes, it does matter how your organization operates, which, for example, if your thing is just about particular things and deadlines occurring and you reach those deadlines, then it should not matter to your boss. If you're working up at midnight, you deal with the kids in the day and whatever. However, if your work is critical to somebody else doing their work, then it's a little inconsiderate if you get your stuff done at 4, 5, 6 in the evening and then pass it on to somebody else who then has to take it, right? So it's really about understanding where does your work fit in the parameters of everything else that everybody else is doing. If your stuff is not either dependent on or nobody else is necessarily waiting on it, and you just need to deliver at a particular time, then work it out with your boss that I'm going to deal with the kids in the morning, but I will get it done by X time, even if it's 3 in the morning or before you wake up, right? So it really is about understanding how your particular work modules fit in the entire structure.
Okay. Yes. One of the things that you always recommend is that where you are working from home and the organization is now operating from this work from home scenario, that you have either a daily or some kind of weekly company-wide call or certain department call. Can we talk a little bit about how that works in this new paradigm? Because what we're used to is we come into the meeting, we greet with one another, we get a cup of coffee, we probably check some message. So joining by Zoom it's a new way of doing things. How does a manager even organize such a call?
Yes. Okay. Again, we have a basic recommendation for what we call the agenda. So the agenda that the manager should go through with the workers. And it's basically 10 steps, 10 pieces that once these become sort of the way in which you can structure. It could be a weekly, it could be daily. If it's daily, it's shorter. If it's weekly, the meeting is a little longer. But the first thing you want to give is an overall company update. Again, remember, nobody's at the office. So there's news about the company that's happening that nobody has heard. Maybe you got a new client. Maybe a receivable that wasn't coming in. Maybe we got a delay on a payment that we had to do. Maybe somebody new had to be hired. Maybe something big has happened in the company that you actually want to share. Could be positive or negative, hopefully more positive than negative. But that's sort of the first thing. The next thing you want to do is what we call celebrate what went right. So last week you did a set of things and it's an amazing time because particular thing has happened. And you want to make sure that people are involved with the positivity of the company and sort of what's been happening. So that's the second thing that we would do. On the flip side, we also want to do, not as a blame thing, but also what went wrong. What could we have done differently? I was with a counselor company recently where I was attending their morning meetings to help them coach through this. And they had a situation where somebody called about business on a Thursday. By the time they got geared up to respond to that request for proposal on Monday, the business is gone. And what I said to them, I said, before, your industry wasn't so much dog eat dog. Now everybody going to be fast. So now you have to create a protocol that said, if somebody reaches out to the company and says, I'm interested in business with the company, you have to think that, oh no, I have 24 hours to respond because there are other people out there going to try and get this business. So it was a thing that the company was shocked that they had lost the business, because before, if you got back to somebody a few days late, a week late, you were still in the running.
Normal, yes.
Not anymore. Everybody looking for money now. So your sales process has to be much on top of it. So make sure that the morning meeting also addresses what didn't go so well for the company last week that we now have to make sure goes well for the company this week.
This week, okay.
Yeah. All right, next would be you go around the room, the virtual room or the Zoom, and you ask each person to talk about their accomplishments and the goals. And the manager himself or herself must also put themselves into that category. So in fact, what I recommend in the meeting is that the manager starts and says, okay, this week or yesterday, I was able to do this sales call. It went well. I was able to do this. It happened. I was trying to get this done, but it never happened. Or I was trying to reach this man. It never happened, but I'm going to keep trying. So he, first of all, lays out himself in a kind of honest and open way about what has worked well for him or her and what didn't work so well, because it then sets the tone of what the company can find acceptable, right? He shouldn't just direct. He's also being a part of the team, sharing a part of the team. And then
on that particular point, though, whether we were in COVID or not, it's something that we do have to assess ourselves and ask if we're doing it in the first place. Because what COVID would have highlighted is where some of these deficiencies existed before, and now we have to be operating very differently.
Yes, I think that's right. I think that's absolutely right. And then you go through each employee. You ask, what are the things that you were intended to accomplish? What did you get done? What didn't you get done? And again, same way as the manager talks respectfully about it. And then somebody keeps the notes as to almost like you think about it like a task list. You have a task list by name. Rochelle's going to do these doing these three things. John is going to be doing these three things. Zavada is going to be doing these three things over the next few days. And then you start to outline the new tasks and assignment and who is responsible. Because then you also get a situation as everybody's there. So what you then get is that everybody then becomes accountable to everybody else. So you change the accountability, because when we are in the office very often, we're all accountable just to the manager. Now we all become accountable to the company, including the manager. Because even the manager will be declaring, I am getting this done, and everybody here. If the manager come now next week and it's still don't do, everybody's still here. And they're like, well, what's going on with this manager? He's not doing what he's supposed to do. So what it does is it lets the company manage the activities that are required for the company, because everybody then watches themselves or watches each other. So it becomes a matter of thing. Now, when somebody has laid out the things that they are going to get done, you then ask the question again of each person, what might prevent you from accomplishing your goals this week? Boy, too much is on my plate. Boy, I really don't know what to do. I thought I knew what to do it, but I'm really going to need some kind of support, right? And therefore, you get the opportunity then for other people to even volunteer. Okay, Rochelle, you have too much on your plate. I can do that sales call for you. I can write that presentation for you. Or alternatively, if you don't know how to do something, you just declare your hand there. Not a team member can say, you know what, Rochelle, I know Excel very well. So let me spend a couple hours now teaching you Excel so that you can get the task of what you need. So you can then say, do you need more detailed guidance around your task? Do you need an extra body to help you, or you need more training, right? So that becomes an issue. 9, the ability to also ask, how busy are you? Can you take anything else on? This is also critical, right? Because then you get to see who is very busy, who is not so busy, and then you can allocate the work across the company more fairly. So that we also ask people to, as part of the thing. So I hear a list of things that you're going to do this week. How busy are you? And you say, why am I pretty busy? Or why I'm dead, swamped? Or you know what? Not so busy. It also allows you to understand as a manager how long things take. Because if I said to you, yeah, I'm doing 3 sales presentations this week, so I'm swamped. You may say, wait, but 3 presentations not supposed to take you all week. Let me talk to you about your process, because it should not be that 3 presentations make you, you shouldn't be busy all week. And then that will allow you as a manager to discover where the employee or the team member may be less efficient than they could be. So how busy are you relative to the number of tasks that you've been given allows you to see the capacity in the system and the capabilities of the people. And then, of course,
we're going to be talking to
iTunes needs your attention.
We're going to be talking to Lissandra in a short while, in about 5 minutes. And you have raised a question of things like, you know, how busy are you? You know, what are you able to manage this week? And with Lissandra, we're going to talk a little deeper into other questions that you may want to ask that, you know, get into the whole concept of engagement and motivation, because maybe those 3 sales calls are all you can do because you have 3 little children at home at various levels and you're also homeschooling. So we're going to talk to Sandra too about when you're leading in this new paradigm where home is also school, you know, what are some of the things that as a leader, some of the conversations that you're going to have differently with your people? Nevada, I think there were 10 questions. Tell us about that last one, and then we're going to talk about management style.
Yes. So the last one now is about what else might you be able to contribute to the company further. And again, it's an open question, right? You're not putting pressure on anybody, but especially somebody who also has shown themselves not that busy. There are always other things that you're able to do. And I think Lissandra is going to talk about how do you make yourself essential to the company by expanding the amount of things that you contribute to the company. When in a COVID time, they may be laying people off, they become increasingly hesitant to lay you off if you are actually giving a whole lot of value in a whole lot of different areas to the company. So that's kind of the last issue where you ask people, well, what else can you contribute this week, given the fact you may not be as busy? Or who else can you help to get their things out the door more quickly? So,
Nevada, you have been just saying over and over, management style has to change, you know. The leadership style that we've been taught over the years, we're going to have to do some amendments. And that's what leadership really is about. What can you tell us a little bit about what will have to happen differently and how would we do it?
Okay, so here's the issue. When I said that, one of the things with management style has to differ by employee. What we tend to do in Jamaica, which is not right, is that we do one style, and usually style is what I call 100% hands-off style. Rochelle, write that presentation for me. Or Rochelle, go do that particular project for me. And then you hear from me again, and then I cost you when it ready, right? That's the style. It's what I call hands off. I'm gone to lunch, no longer support. We encourage you to think about your employees in terms of both their capability and their motivation. And very specifically, you should actually think about how capable the person is with respect to the tasks that they've been given. Because when somebody's very capable, you don't have to give them detailed instructions. When somebody's not as capable, you have to give them very detailed instructions in order to get the thing that you need done. Similarly, on the other side, about motivation. When somebody's very motivated, you don't have to check in with them that often because they will just keep doing and doing on their own until they're complete. When somebody's not so motivated and feeling a little down, you have to be a little more on them in terms of the frequency of check-in to make sure that they're actually making progress. So you're not in a situation where it's up to deadline and you finding out at the point of the deadline that they have not been making progress. So what we have done is that we've allocated what we call 4 buckets, the 4 managerial bucket styles, which I just want to show you on the screen for a second.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing you want to do, we have 4 buckets, right? High capability, high motivation, high capability, low motivation, low capability, but high motivation, and low capability, low motivation. Now, you first want to actually define where your various employees are in the boxes. And you actually write down the name. Again, this is a silent exercise between you and God and, you know, you as the manager. The box determines the level of guidance and the frequency of check-in. So I'll give an example. The task is to make 60 dresses by the end of the week. If somebody is highly capable and highly motivated, so what you would do is you give them, back to the screen for a second, you give them, right, clear high-level goal and a long deadline. So you basically say, make 60 dresses, make 20 dresses, make 60 dresses by the end of the week, and I'll see you at the end of the week. So I don't need to bother that person again. In a situation where it's a high capable person, but who's low motivated, what you need to do in that situation is you give a high level goal, but a very short deadline. So you say to them, make 20 dresses by the end of today. And then I will check in with you every half the day to make sure you make 10 by half day and then 10 at the end. And then tomorrow, again, I tell you, make 20 dresses. So you will still end up with 60 dresses at the end of the week, but I've kept you on a much tighter frame. Somebody with low capability and high motivation, which often it breaks your heart, right? But that in that situation, you give very detailed steps and you leave them alone. So in the case of the dresses, again, you'd say, select the pattern, cut the fabric, place the pattern in pieces, sew the back zipper on, sew the shoulder on, etc. You give them this detail, and you say, leave them to the end of the week. And of course, low capability, low motivation, you give them the detail, but you also check in 3 times a day to make sure they're actually making progress. So that requires of you as a manager a very different way of engaging. Management is something that we learn to do. It is not a position. So crucial that we get better at managing different types of people. And the grid that we use is capability and motivation.
Okay, so I think that's an interesting point that you just made, Nevada, that management is something that we learn to do. So it's in fact a constant practice of management and learning. So some managers now have to unlearn a lot of how they operated in the past. And this is also an opportunity to really hone in on those leadership skills to manage your people in a different way for a higher level of productivity. So we are here speaking with Nevada Paul, who is lead architect for the COVIDCastJA SME project. And he is talking to us today about keeping the team motivated and productive at home. We've covered things like creating a routine. Don't just draw yourself out of bed and get in front of the computer. Get yourself organized and ready. No matter how small your workspace is, it is your workspace. Own it, sit in there and arrive in your work. Work is now home. You also have to find a different passion place, and we're going to be talking about motivation and engagement, because it is going to be engagement from the managers, but we also have to find a bit of self-motivation. Ask ourselves, what can I contribute more? What else can I be doing? How else can I be growing, even though I'm working from home? Nevada also took us through that engagement, that motivation capability grid. Again, if you are not yet subscribed to our weekly memo, please email us at sme@psoj.org. All of this information is in there. Nevada also took us through a very interesting process with the weekly meeting agenda. And, you know, as I was sitting here, I was saying, this is stuff that we really should have been doing already, but now it becomes even that much more important because we're not seeing each other. So those daily interactions where we go, you know, some of us 12 o'clock, we go on a lunch together and we have our lunch crew that we go. And all of this camaraderie is part of what makes work work and what makes it enjoyable. The Gallup study, one of the things it says is, do you have a best friend at work? Does anybody care about me at work? What are people doing for my growth and development? An interesting question it asks is, have I received any recognition in the last 7 days? Because apparently recognition, you forget it at day 5 and you're looking for something else. All of these things still apply. So Nevada is going to join us again a little bit later on. Thank you very much, Nevada.
Very good.
But this time we're going to be joined by Lissandra Rickards, founder and CEO of Soul Career. And she's also going to be talking to us about keeping the team motivated and productive while at home. Hi, Lysandra.
Hi, Rochelle. Great to be on with you.
Yes, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'll just share some of your business. Lysandra is also a millennial. So Lysandra is going to give us a perspective from the millennial perspective, as well as what traditional work has been about. So Lysandra, you've said this is really an opportunity for us to shift our work culture in Jamaica. When you say that, what you mean by that? What's our work culture that we need to be shifting?
Well, I don't even know if I have more to say after you and Nevada talk out all the things, but the Jamaican work culture has been very top down, very heavy from the top for the majority of our history. And in other places in the world, that has evolved rapidly away from that top down management style. And in fact, the addition of millennials to the workforce has even accelerated this shift, because millennials demand a different style of leadership, a different style of engagement at work. And so this period where we're in the largest work from home experiment in global history is really showing that this new style, the millennial style of working, is now the dominant style now that we're working from home. And we have to move away from having other people manage us to us managing ourselves and leading with compassion, with humanity, with heart, with understanding our people at a human level, at a personal level, and not just in the work context, and leading and matching motivations with performance and tasks.
Wow. You know, it's so funny because over the last 2-3 years, much of the conversation about leadership and the workplace has been about engagement. Going beyond, these are your capabilities, these are your tasks, and really tapping into what motivates people to grow. How can I cause you to grow? What do you need to grow? A different type of conversation. But, you know, said that we have the experiment we didn't get a chance to prepare for. So we're kind of thrust into this environment where we're trying to get people to work and stay productive. And then some people are watching and saying, what is Lysandra talk about tapping into people's minds and their motivation? Why does this matter? And why does it even matter now even more than before? Talk us through that.
So now that we're at home, now that we are confronting illness and or mortality in such a major way, it's in our face how much death is happening around the world, how much illness, right? We are all thinking, what is my purpose? What is the legacy that I want to leave? How do I want to spend the majority of my days? Now that I have some time left, how do I want to use it? And so this question of purpose and alignment with purpose is becoming more prevalent and more important than ever before in the face of a global pandemic. And so we all as individuals need to understand our why. Why are we in this particular job? How does this job match with our long-term aspirations for our lives, not just our work lives, but our entire lives? And as leaders, we need to understand, why did this person choose to work for my organization outside of money, outside of, you know, the tactical things? Why us? And how can I tap into that why to get the highest performance possible out of them? And so I always recommend starting with the self. Starting with, and I think I have a great slide up to show here, but starting with a psychometric test that helps you to understand who you really are outside of just who you think you are, who you're conditioned to think, what you're conditioned to think you want out of life. Who are you really beneath all of that? Beneath what society tells us that we're supposed to be. So an easy and free psychometric test to take is the one at 16.
It's free. Okay.
It's very easy to read, very easy to do, 16personalities.com. And it really tries to get to your underlying motivations. And then you use those results to understand your authentic leadership style, or to understand your purpose as someone who's trying to build a career and to think about your life goals and what steps you need to take to meet those goals. And then I would also recommend create a personal definition of success. And that definition of success is going to map to the tasks that you're doing at work and tell you, this is why I need to be motivated to do the things I'm doing at work.
So in our conversations now, as colleagues in an organization and as leaders in organization, it's not just thinking that people are not just working for money. Even in this time of COVID, that people still matter. We still believe that we matter, and we still have a why. Even though we're very concerned with lockdown, we still have a why.
Yeah.
So so we're going to look at the manager in this time, and also as a colleague, as a worker, as a part of the business in this time. We're getting some comments here. Somebody said millennials have been saying this all along, because I want us to actually go into the whole the issue of millennials. Are millennials different in their view of what work is and where work is done, and how are these generations, because all of us all the generations are colliding in this new space, in this experiment, as you call it. So as a manager, how can you become a better manager during this time? Because there's an opportunity to actually hone some skills. What are some of the things you would recommend?
Absolutely. And in fact, as in my former life, I was the CEO of the Branson Center. So I was a millennial leader myself, and I had a team of my majority millennials. And it's a very different type of thing to lead millennials, I have to say. So the first thing, we started with the self, understanding who you really are. The next thing for a manager is to match who your team members are with the projects and assignments that you're giving them. So ask your team members to do this test at 16personalities.com or any other psychometric test. There's so many out there. And then get the results. Have a team meeting. Share. This is how I work. This is who I am. And then try to match their projects and their tasks with that underlying personality. And that's how you're going to get the most out of them. Yeah. And we did this at the Branson Center using a bigger test called Predictive Index, which is very complex and actually does team level management stuff. Then when you've now set the projects, the tasks, the assignments, now you want to make sure that the objectives and the end results are crystal clear to your team members. The worst thing and the easiest way to lose team members is to be opaque, to not be clear. They don't know what you really want. They're trying to guess what you want. You need to make sure their objectives and results that they're driving towards are crystal clear, so that it's a matter of fact, not debate whether they've reached those targets or not, right? And then the third thing I have on this slide is, don't just be a passive manager. It's the same thing Nevada was saying earlier. You can't just say, here's your task, and sit back and expect people to just do it. And then you use a carrot approach. Here's your reward for doing it, or a stick. I'm going to beat you if you don't do it, right? No, now you have to take an active role in developing your team and nurturing them, checking in with them. One of the things that I did, my team members were very high performing, so they would work themselves into the ground. And I would see them burning out, and I would intervene and say, hey guys, you look like you're burning out. Come, have a meeting with me. Let's reprioritize some of the tasks so you can manage better. Tell me how I can help you. I'm here to support you. So tell me how I can help you manage your workload so you don't burn out.
Yeah, you know, you mentioned that you were CEO of the Branson Center, and you're now co-founder and CEO of Soul Career. So I'm going to ask you a question that kind of pulls the two together. Today, Sheryl Sandberg had an article that was published in Forbes on Forbes.com. I'll send it to you. Very interesting, because one of the things they're looking at is they conducted a survey of how life has changed, especially for women working from home. Because you remember, you got in the car, you dropped off the kids, and they were away from you for most of the day, and you went to work. Then you picked them up, and a boundary started where you were now mother at home or father. And in fact, the studies are showing that women are more affected because women feel more anxious. Yes. They have to be doing the work and taking care of home. Now, when you know, for instance, that you have a woman working from home, she has 3 children who are also being homeschooled, and you have some deliverables, you know, because we need to collect the receivables and we have to get the things sold. So I'm feeling some compassion, but I need to also get my side of the work done. How do you balance that as a leader, knowing that it's an anxious time? And I know you're going to be talking about mental health a little later on, but how, as a leader, how do you balance these considerations?
communication with your team member is absolutely key. Oh, great. That's my next point on the slide. Perfect timing, right? How to communicate to your team can determine whether you succeed or fail as a manager. So I would say for that, if you could take down the slide 1 second. So for that woman who is working from home, who is frazzled, who is doing more than she did pre-COVID, working, schooling, teacher, take care of the kid, take care of the husband, everything. Open a channel of communication and ask the question, how can I support you to be more effective and feel less anxious while you're working from home?
Yes.
And get ideas from your team member. You don't have to be the one. Again, this top down. I need to tell you what to do. It doesn't have to be. Invite that conversation and ask, okay, how can we reprioritize things? How can I help you manage your schedule so that you can still get the highest priority things out the door, but leave some space for flexibility to take into account your home situation and what's going on there. Okay. So communication is key.
Another thing you talk about is recognition and public recognition. Why is that so important?
Right. So we're working from home. We don't have that in-person camaraderie. We can't read the body language anymore. We don't know if we're doing a good job or not. But we're not in communication as much as we were in the past, right? So leaders need to make sure that they're bigging up the high performers and saying, yes, thank you for doing this on time. You've helped me so much. You've moved the business forward. And that is a key part of employee motivation. When people feel like they're contributing, they're feeling significant, and you publicly recognizing them contributes that feeling of significant in the organization.
And even more now than ever, people want to feel that they matter. They're not seeing you. They don't know where you can't give them that thumbs up again and say, really great job. So they're not sure. So that public recognition is important. Now, we talked about the manager side of it. On the other side of it, as a colleague, as a worker, what is my contribution to this whole process?
Absolutely. So I'm going to give you some pointers on how to become essential at work. But in the back end of all of this, be mindful of your mental health. And we're going to talk about that last. But I'm going to give you these pointers, but your mental health comes first. So in order to become essential at work, you have to be the one to raise your hand, to step forward, to take the initiative. Don't just sit back and wait for somebody to tell you what to do, because you're at home. And if you sit back and wait, they might think, okay, you're not doing anything, so you're not an essential worker. So you might be the first person on the list if there needs to be layoffs and redundancies.
Real talk.
So you have to make sure that you are making your manager's job easier. The highest, the most indispensable people on a team are the ones who make the leader's job easier. Those are the ones that the leader can't live without. And you do that by taking initiative, being reliable, showing up consistently, and finishing tasks ahead of the deadline and on top of things and saying, all right, what's next? I'm ready. What's next? Those are my team members that I love that do that.
Yes.
Finally, of course, anything you put your name on has to be excellent. If Lysandra Rickard's name on it, it has to be top quality. So produce high quality work, and it should be obvious that you put a lot of time, effort, and care into your work. Just look at how pretty the slide is. I put a lot of time and effort into it.
So you still have to, even though you are at home working, you still have to show up. And you have to show up loudly and positively. So the things that mattered before, and some of us do have to take that look and say, was I really that productive even when I came into work? Or did I come in at 6:30, present myself early, and I would eat breakfast till 9? I would lounge about. I'm a complainer. Because it's really a time of us all resetting. So it's time for managers to reset. It's time for our workers to reset. I'm seeing some comments coming in. I'm just reminding you to ask your questions, send in your comments. I'm seeing one of our favorites, Romeo Stewart. Roma says this is new to everyone and working from home is pretty difficult, but my team hold each other accountable. And because of that, working from home became the new normal and effectively so. So for some people, it is in fact working. And I'm sure some of these points that you've added, Lysandra, will really help us because we have to take a look at ourselves and we have to ask ourselves the why. Now, after we are at episode 7, and it's so funny because we started out, how did you pivot your business? And now we're looking at how you pivot yourself. And a part of that is our mental health. We don't like to talk about that, but let's talk about our mental health a bit.
Absolutely. I mean, in order to do anything, any of the tactics that we've given you or that Nevada has given you, we need an enormous amount of energy. These things require energy to show up at work, to take initiative, to take care of the kids, to take care of your husband, all of that. And so the first thing we have to do before we even get to the tactics is to protect and preserve our mental health at all costs. Because if we're in a fog, if we're feeling sluggish, if we can't get out of bed, we cannot do any of these things that were suggested on this call. So I recommend get outside, breathe some fresh air, go in the sun, please. 10 minutes, 15 minutes a day, get some vitamin D. Vitamin D is essential for our happiness, right? Second, I work out every day, not because of any body thing, not to look hot, but because my brain needs it. I need to get the blood pumping and the oxygen flowing to my brain. I need to increase my endorphins and my level of serotonin so that I can attack the day, because today I'm on webinars until 8 p.m. today, right? So I need energy from wherever I can get it. Third, you can reduce your anxiety by limiting how much news you consume. Oh my gosh, I have a friend who is pregnant, right? My friend is pregnant. She's in the hospital now about to have her baby. And she was getting so anxious just looking at all the news about Jodianne and so on and getting really anxious. And I had to tell her, listen, stop listening to the news. Just stop. Preserve your mental health. Maybe you want to just check in 5 minutes in the morning just to make sure you're not missing anything, but make sure you're replacing that negative imagery with inspirational, uplifting content that inspires you to go and do something. Read a book, listen to music, listen to a podcast, meditate, yoga, anything to create positivity in your body and readiness for work.
So this has really been so good, Lysandra, because you've talked to us about our why, how we can actually hone our skills as workers, as managers, but this preservation of our mental health. And sometimes we forget that the mental health affects everything else.
Yes.
Everybody has hashtag when outside was good or outside soon good again. We still go outside. In Jamaica, those of us who are able to go outside and get some sun. I see somebody on who is from the UK. Welcome. As much vitamin D as you can get, but also that slowing down and looking at what your brain is currently consuming and ask yourself, what is making me so anxious? And also on the flip side of it, as colleagues and as managers, recognizing the little nuances with each other. So even though you're not meeting up for lunch, you could still reach out with a WhatsApp call. You could just check in to say, how you doing? You never sound so good on the Zoom call today. What's going on? The children of Maggio? So thank you so much, Lysandra. Lysandra is still going to stay with us because she's going to be answering some questions later on. So Lysandra is co-founder and CEO of Soul Korea. She was also CEO of the Branson Center, and she's been kind enough to just share some great pointers with us today. Again, if you did not get our memo, please email us at sme@psoj.org or leave your email address below. Kemo, I see, yes, I had to drastically reduce how much news I was watching this week, and it has helped me so much mentally. And if I tell you, me too, Kemo. At this time, we are going to be joined by Dr. Carolyn Hale, who is CEO of Echelon Global Solutions Limited, and she is going to be talking to us about the future of work. Dr. Hale.
Hi there. How are you?
Wonderful to see you again. No, we have to just jump into, because in our memo this week, as you were musing about the future of work, you had actually sent the Chinese symbol for crisis, which has just boggled my mind. Tell us a little bit. Let me not jump into. You tell us a little bit about what this symbol says, and as we get into this whole concept of the future of work.
Well, Rochelle, I was looking up, you heard over time that this symbol represents danger and opportunity at the same time. Well, when I did the research, they debunked that. It said it does not represent both danger and opportunity at the same time. It's a placement of the symbols, the characters that create those two different words. So I found that very interesting, because it leads us to the mindset. You see, if the management is not prepared to change the way they do business, a lot of things are going to pass them by. COVID has unearthed a lot of interesting things. COVID has unearthed not only the way the millennials work, but it has also unearthed the way management needs to think, because what is happening now is that a lot of the business is going to go online. If you are not prepared to work online with your business, you may have two streams. You may have one with the existing physical business that you are used to, but you may have a second stream that's opening up to you in terms of online business. Yes. So you're going to have to have the staff that supports both sides. Interestingly enough, one of the things that management should be doing now is understanding that in another couple of weeks, when it opens up, a lot of jobs and a lot of opportunity will also open, because there's been a number of people have died across the world, and there are gaps. There are huge gaps in the work chain. And so there are opportunities for you to work across cultures. The Institute of the Future of Work last year is doing some research, and it shows that there are two very important issues that we have to face. One is virtual collaboration, which is what we're doing now by working online. And the second thing we're going to have to look at is cross-cultural development and cross-cultural interactions. So we are now in a position where we need to look at this whole business of working online as a training ground. We need to look at the personalities. You heard Lysandra say that. You're looking at personalities she was looking at personality from the perspective of the individual. And I am looking at as a collective. Management needs to look at the team and find out the different personalities that exist on a team. It also means that you may have to get them to take another test in terms of their learning styles. Some people learn audio, some are visual. But you need to know that, and you need to be able to pull the intergenerational teams together, because you're going to have the millennials, but you will have the boomers, and you will have X and Y. They work differently, but together they're going to be able to produce for the company. Now,
just keep pulling on this point for a moment, because one of the things that you have been just pushing through this time is that we have to be working differently going forward.
Absolutely.
And it's easy for us to say it, but some people are looking and saying, but hey, how are you talking about this working differently? And you mentioned that we, even as the managers too, are going to have to do some personality tests. We have to look at our learning styles. And one of the things that you talked about from way before this is that the future of work is now online and it's cross-cultural. Now, when our viewers are hearing this sounds a little scary. Like, do I have to go back to management school?
No. You may have to go back to management school, but you may have to also begin to apply what you learned in management school. That's more applicable, I think, because you have learned all of these things, but have you been using them, or have you just fallen into the groove and saying, do what I say and not as I do? Or this is a different game. Now, there's software that can manage all of these things. You don't have to confuse yourself with personalities and issues, because what you're looking at there, you have tasks to be completed. That's the first thing. So there's software there. For example, my son works with a company called Monday.com, and it's a project management system that's very easy. It manages the entire team, sends all the messages they have. You can zoom across it. You can do all sorts of things, all on your phone or on your laptop, wherever you choose to do it.
So the future is very technological too.
Yes.
So you have to be prepared. However, whether you're still going to be in brick and mortar, you still have to have a mindset that is now open to technology in this new future. Bernadine Johnson, Bernadine says that she's not hearing. Our producer, are we okay with sound?
Yeah. Are we okay?
I'm hearing you. I know Bernadine is listening to us from very far. Thank you for joining us.
Okay.
So let's continue. So Dr. Hale, this whole consumption of technology and our openness to technology, how is that going to change the workplace going forward?
It's going to change it drastically. But the important thing is that a lot of the software out there is very intuitive. It's very easy to work with it. Now, remember I was speaking earlier about the intergenerational teams. So you would put together the people who, some of them may not necessarily be youngsters that are tech savvy. You know, you can have older people that are tech savvy too. And so you put the people who are tech savvy regardless of their age together. But you need some people with experience who understand the history of the company, so that they know what the procedure is and how you can do this, but you can't do that because it breaks the rules internally. But more particularly, it allows everybody to be on the same page in terms of learning the technology, and nobody feels threatened. Because it's all new to everybody. And what's more,
as we are going into this new future of work, where the different generations in the workplace, technology actually brings us together.
Absolutely.
And then we're applying the different nuances, because there's still a lot of value in our baby boomers with the experience that they have. There's a lot of value with our millennials with their fearless ability to just move things forward. So this is really an opportunity to bring the generations together through technology.
A huge opportunity, because you see the more experienced people will guide you through the difficult patches because they have experience, but the younger ones will see the risk then, and they're willing to take the risk. But you have to have the team together that will be able to put all of the pieces so you can walk between the raindrops and succeed. Now, I saw some data this morning, which is kind of interesting. It came in from one of the UN agencies, and it is showing actually it is the age group in the workforce that is under threat from COVID. A lot of people in 50 and 59 are the ones that are actually being affected, not so much the older ones. So that is interesting. And for a country like Jamaica, we need to look across the world and see where can I drop in and fill in the supply chain for some other partner with some other companies outside in somewhere else in the world, that they're losing those skills, but I have those skills here. And so we can form super structures, and we can bid on jobs across the world. We can interact and form one long supply chain. And so you're able to earn the foreign exchange and survive. And you'll have two sets of folks. You'll have one serving the domestic market, more or less, that you're accustomed to, and then the others that are more inclined to work online. Now, the beauty of the software is that I went to a conference last year, and they said you have to remember that life happens. You, the employer, is now intruding on the employee's territory. You are in their homes. And yes, I'm supposed to work from 8:30 to 4:30, but I've been mandated to stay home, but my life still goes on. So it's so important that those meetings be short and to the point. What did you do yesterday or last week? What's happening? What are we going to do later? Are there any challenges? If there are challenges, don't deal with it in the meeting, deal with it on the side. So get that sorted out over there. Okay, you talk to that person one-on-one. And so they can get back to do what they have to do. If you continuously meet, nothing can get done. The children are knocking at the door or running through the house, screaming and shouting. It makes everybody nervous, and then the employee is going to wonder what the employee is thinking. Remember, you are now intruding into their space. And so we have to collaborate. And that's where the software comes in that can manage a task. The manager will be comfortable because he can see what everybody is doing, and he can see where the tasks are in the chain. Very important. Very important.
Just to talk to you a little bit about some of the activities that we can do, because I know we have small and medium size business owners who are on this call, and we also have persons who are responsible for larger organizations. And a lot of these points apply across size of organization. So tell us about some of the activities that can prepare a company for this future of work.
Right. Well, as I said, first thing we need to do is to make make sure that you're on legal good ground. Make sure that you have, when you're going out there, that you're meeting the European standards. Because if you're collecting data on people and going to use it again, you can find yourself in legal wranglings. Well, you know that, Rochelle, you're an attorney, so you wouldn't caution them. You need to make sure that those things are in place. What are your policies? Your policies may have to revamp, because you had policies that addressed only a static physical organization. Now you're working online. You may be working across time zones. If you have a partner that's waking up, for example, I had some fellas for me doing some stuff for me in India, and when I'm going to sleep at 9, I'm hearing ping on Skype. I'm like, oh God, he's now coming out to work. It's 9 o'clock in the morning for him. Okay, so it's not so much wedded to a 9 to 5. It's wedded to the task and the functions that have to be done, and the software that can help you to get through that day. So having set up this meeting and you figured out what you want to do, there's also something called a blackout day. You don't have to meet every day. You don't have to see the person every day, because you have the software and you can see what they're doing. They need time to think. If you ask them to create a presentation, you can't have Zoom meetings or StreamYard meetings from 8 to 8, because there'll be no time for me to produce. And tomorrow when you ask me where it is, I'm going to say I didn't do it. Then you're going to be annoyed. But you have filled my whole day with meetings. And also it's a sign of distrust. You don't trust the employees. I have to see you. No, you don't have to see me. You don't have to see me. If I need your help, I'll come back to you and say, I didn't quite get what you're saying. And also working across the system, you have to be able to say, listen, I don't quite understand, because we are not seeing each other. It's very important to over communicate. Lysandra said that. You have to over communicate to make sure that the tone is not wrong, and that you're not conveying the wrong message. Then when it comes down to the end of the day, we need some time out. We need hangout time. We need a coffee break time. So I was on a training session last week with 2 youngsters who were teaching us to work remote. One of the things that was suggested, that you have a lounge where you have a coffee break, or you can go in there to brainstorm and just hang out, talk to your friends. And one other lady said, well, in their organization, a big organization, they have lunchtime breaks where you have concerts, people share their playlist, you can have a cook-off. It's just yes, it's all live, all online, social distancing.
Wow, you really have given us some amazing points. And I'm actually going to bring back Nevada and Lysandra now, so we can just open up the conversation, because Dr. Hale has talked to us about the future of work. How do we pull all these generations together? And technology has now become the base of doing that. And you've given us, because we've talked about pivoting your business. And one of the things too is that we are no longer stuck in Jamaica. And we have an opportunity during this time to really expand the borders of our business. We have Lysandra, CEO of Soul Korea. Lysandra is pretty much all over the world all day long with her various clients, as is Dr. Hale. Dr. Hale has clients way down in India. And I know Nevada have clients in Brazil, all over the world. So what we have here, audience, is that we have a group of persons who are actually living what Lysandra calls the experiment that we're now experiencing during COVID. And it can be done. And you can, in fact, keep your team engaged and motivated during this time. Now, one of the things Dr. Hale just touched on is boundaries. And she mentioned this whole, like, you can have lunchtime breaks where the team comes together, shares their playlist, etc. The anxiety and the mental health issues at this time is something that we really do have to address, and how we deal with this concept of boundaries. Lysandra, let me start with you and this concept of boundaries. And I join in because the 2 of us are millennials.
Yes, of course. Everyone on the call.
So How does this concept of boundaries work? Because one of the things with millennials that people say is that millennials have like 10 jobs and see people working all the time while posting 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
Are there any boundaries? Are there boundaries? And how do we implement boundaries? Because all of us have our boundaries.
Absolutely. I mean, I think millennials are the worst at putting in boundaries, to be honest. Just real talk. And boundaries tend to be very fluid, right? So you can have some concepts around which you try to create your boundaries, but then they flow back and forth depending on the day, depending on the circumstance, etc. So how I think about my boundaries is I first have to start with, I know what makes me happy and what makes me a high performer. Mm-hmm. So I have to go for a run around Mona Dam in the morning just to see some nature and get some sunlight and be ready for the day. But this morning I woke up, the slides for my first webinar weren't done yet. And so I had to decide, right? Yeah. Should I go for my run or should I finish my slides? Yeah. And I had to make those boundaries fluid and say, well, I need to show up for my audience. So I'm going to do the slides. So that's the thing. You have an idea around what makes you perform well. I need to go to bed by 10 o'clock every night because I'm up at 5 a.m. every morning. But after you've shaped, okay, this is what I need, then each day has to be adjusted based on the priorities and the needs of that day. So that's kind of how I think about the boundaries.
The boundaries. Nevada, you are working with a lot of businesses that are pivoting at this stage. Businesses that are at different levels, like high P&L businesses and businesses that are pretty much just struggling to keep it going. Now, when a business person, when you're having this conversation about the future of work and boundaries, how do you talk to a CEO? So we have persons here now who are leading businesses and they're like, I hear what you're saying, I hear you talking about the why and the technology and the generations coming together, but do you understand that my business is currently falling apart?
Yeah.
What is the conversation we need to be having that balances these various considerations?
Yeah. Again, we've addressed it in other shows, kind of in the same zone about what are sort of the structural issues that you're dealing with, and then what is it that you can do about the business. So, for example, again, in the tourist business, right? If you're in Jamaica, dependent on the influx of people coming from abroad, and that's not happening, you have a structural issue, and no amount of training or coaching or anything is going to address that issue. So the first thing is the recognition that what is your situation? Now, you have something that's working, and the issue is how can you get that then to work better? Because that's really what this is about. This is, you have a proposition, whether because you're pivoted or because of the nature of your business, but how can you make sure that you're being as effective as possible? Because I will say this, as Dr. Hila talked about, the crisis is also an opportunity. Remember, many businesses are going to be struggling. So if you are number 2 or number 3 player, for example, in an industry that's still working, this is your opportunity to actually move to number 1. And how you're going to move to number 1 is by having internal management processes that can actually make you more effective. Can I get stuff done faster? Can I get stuff done with higher quality? Can I get stuff done with a smaller team than I had before? These are massive strategic opportunities, depending on what you are looking at. I just got some results of a poll that we're doing while we're going on. Has your business transitioned fully to working from home? 80% said yes, 20% said no. So it is now, as Dr. Hale said, law of the land, right? And I suspect in many cases, even when we open up or semi-open up, I think the whole thing of working in an office is going to completely change, right? So I think many people who have now figured out how to do it won't necessarily go further. And then they said, are you finding it difficult to keep workers at home motivated? 73% said yes. So we are hitting at the crux of a real issue facing Jamaican businesses in general. And that really is something that we're going to have to keep toying with, keep playing with, and finding what the optimal solution is for both managers and workers.
Yeah. Dr. Hay, let me bring you in now too, based on some of those points that Nevada just raised. So you have been at the center of much of what has happened with people development across Jamaica. You were chairman of Heart Trust NTA at PD.
Executive Director, Hartrust, Chairman of UCJ.
Yes. Only for things. So Dr. Hale, as you look at the different generations and how Jamaica has evolved to this point, usually as the evolution of the workplace happens, it happens over a period of time. This one feels very sudden, and we've been thrust into, I love what Lysandra says, the experiment. So we've just been thrust into it. You have seen how we have evolved in the workplace. What opportunities do you see in this sudden experiment that we are living that will potentially make us a better place to work going forward?
Well, I'm quite confident that Jamaica will be a better place going forward. We have been in this experiment for a very long time, and I'm wearing both my UCJ and Hartrust hats because we have been looking at certification. One of the first things we've been talking about certification and both institutional and programmatic accreditation, which gives us the opening into the international arena. And so Jamaica is well known both for the technical vocational education and for our academics. We have no problem there. Our degrees are portable. What we have to do inside of the companies is to get people focused on lifelong learning. The first thing that you need to do right now is to take an inventory of the talent that is actually in your business. Because I was speaking to a friend of mine who is a hotelier in Barbados and said the same thing to them because they had called me to help with something there. And I'm saying to them, look, the point is that you may have talent in your establishment that you didn't know. And he said, you're right. The other day, we hired a security guard. The guy lived in England. He came in. We had him as security guard. And about 2 months later, his HR director came and said, do you know that that man has a degree in accounting? He said, what? They interviewed the man is now working in the accounting section. But you see, you never bother to look at that because that's not what you hired him for.
No.
So if you take an inventory of the talent that is inside of your organization, you may find that alone will motivate people because you will find that the person who is a security guard can do something else. When I worked at the World Bank, for example, a number of the secretaries and staff assistants had PhDs. They were coming from countries that they were exiled from countries, and they needed a G4 visa to stay in the US. Because they had a PhD was of no relevance to the World Bank. The World Bank wanted to know if you could type and take shorthand and do those other things. So they were hired as secretaries. So it is your skills, it's your skills and competence. You have to use those wherever you are, and you have several of them. And these things, when you pull those together in an organization, you pull all of the skills and competencies together, you can create a magnificent new product that you didn't even think about. Yes. But you must take that inventory, that stock of what's in there.
Actually, Carolyn, a comment I wanted to make because it's very interesting. So the company that's doing our Facebook Live, Adtelligent, I also help sometimes at their meetings. And we just did a survey of everybody in the company that basically asks, what can you do and what are you interested in learning? And it's very revealing because you actually do find people having skills outside of their jobs and then people wanting to learn things that aren't necessarily in their jobs. That allows you to, once you have that possibility, you can change the nature of the work of your work staff, of your employees, and what they can do.
Well, and that's what drives motivation. That's what motivates people.
Motivates people. We have a final survey. Do you understand how to use teleconference platforms like Zoom and so on? Now, very different than 3 weeks ago, where there's a struggle. 100% of the people have said yes. So we have now evolved into a way that now it's like, oh yeah, I know what you're doing. I know what I'm doing.
There you go.
No, and that's actually a very good point because in various meetings, and we in all types of Zoom meetings, GoToMeeting, all kind of meetings, and the meetings that took place 5-6 weeks ago, if the meeting was set for 2, it wasn't starting till 2:45 as everybody tried to get on and you were talking people through the process. And I'm seeing now that people almost have it as a badge of honor to say, let me share my screen. I know how to share my screen. So even the use of these platforms is an entire new learning for us. Doing a presentation when you're not physically in a space to feel everybody's energy. That is a new skill that is being developed during this time. So as our viewers are watching and we're getting some interesting comments, I see Mubarak he just said, I believe the current situation has fast forwarded us for not 2 years, but for 5 years.
Yes, yes.
So we have been catapulted 5 years ahead of where we would have expected to be when we were in January of 2020. Lysandra, let me pull you back in. Now, in your current as sole career, what are some of the things that your clients are coming to you with in this COVID time that are different than the issues that they have now that are different than, say, in January of 2020?
Yes, so a lot more layoffs, a lot more redundancies. In January 2020, we were talking about transitioning from an existing job into a new job. Now we're talking about transitioning from not having any job into a job. But what has surprised me is that people still care a lot about fit between their soul and their personality and their purpose and the job that they are looking for now. And that has been a big surprise for me, because I thought there would be more desperation, like any job, just give me any job. I need an income, right? And instead of that, people are going on to Fiverr and Upwork and freelancing. And freelancing a lot more than before. But they still, when they're looking for an actual workplace, an office, or a corporation to enter, they want to feel valued. They want to feel connected to the work. They want to have flexibility, especially women. I work with a lot of women. They need the flexibility now, which is not a matter of a nice to have anymore. It is a requirement for the job now. And everyone across the board, men and women, want to care about what they're doing. And I thought that would change, and it hasn't. So that's been a big surprise.
That's a surprise. Yeah. Dr. Hill, when you hear this, and in your roles as a part of the education system, the tertiary education system, how do we educate our people differently when we are doing, say, a management degree? What's going to need to be different going forward?
One of the things that has to be different is for management to realize, well, certainly when I was taught at Howard, it's management by walkabout. So it's, you have to walk the talk. So now you are on the platform, as Nevada said, people will see that you have not delivered on your end of the bargain. When it was face-to-face, you could fudge. Now, if you are on a software system, I can see you haven't completed the task, and yet still you're holding me accountable. So the first thing is to train a lot of the new managers coming through on the different types of software that's out there. That's the first thing. A lot of it is free too. So you don't know, and some of the, we're talking now, and some people may be saying, but I don't have any money at the moment. But a lot of the stuff is free. If you take the basic packages, they're freemiums. You don't have to pay. You have, this gives you an opportunity for you to learn the software and see which one, how it stacks up. What's your how stackable are these things with the way you do things, right? That's the most important thing. And then the other thing to realize that you are actually, the manager's role is to release the discretionary income with energy within the team, which will then release the discretionary income down the road. But we're looking at the energy at the moment, where it's these things that you do, those lounges where you go in and you talk for 5-10 minutes and you go back to work. Or then you may have something interesting happening in the world, and you say, you know what, we're going to have a brainstorming this afternoon because I saw something interesting on YouTube, and I just want you guys to look at it and see how it fits with what we do. Or let somebody plan the events. We talked about the events before, because it is in those casual settings that people begin to feel that they belong. But what we tend to teach managers is that it's a hierarchy. It's not a hierarchy. It's actually flat. And the better managers lead on a flat basis and lead actually from behind. You see what is happening and you pull them where they need to go. You don't need to be in front. They know you're the manager. You don't need to tell them. They're aware of that. What they need is your help and guidance, and try and certify them as much as possible, because this is only the first pandemic, there are many more. And so as you people learn new things, make sure they're certified so that they can survive after. If your company closes, they need to be able to survive, and that's one of the best things you could ever do for them as a company. Give them the tools just to be able to survive.
And we see a question coming in, and Nevada, let me pull you in with this question too. So this question is, how do we assess new hires that are working from home? So we knew some people before. We've been working with them. We know their nuances. We know their children. But now we have some new hires because companies are still hiring persons, notwithstanding. How do we assess whether or not a new hire is actually working and being productive from home?
You know, it's very interesting that you say that. I was in a situation recently where a company was trying to do a bunch of hires, and what I recommended, if it's possible, is you give people a short special project. Because even somebody with a very good resume who has demonstrated that they've worked well in the not at home environment may not necessarily translate to be as incredible as they were in the previous environment, especially if you as a manager don't yet have all the protocols in place to manage the team effectively. So if it's possible, and it's not possible in every situation, if you could give a small isolated project to work with someone, obviously in a paid way, in a small paid way, and see how they deliver, right? Something that's very clear. Lysandra talked about this, right? A clear deliverable. It's not an ambiguous thing. Could you write this presentation for me? Could you do a small app upgrade for me? Do something very defined, and then watch that. If you aren't able to do that, again, as you start, assume, right, that the person doesn't know the protocols of the company, doesn't know what it does, and therefore you have to make sure that they become comfortable. You have to spend more time with them at the beginning. You can't just, because remember again, they don't have co-workers per se that are going to help them be part of the company. That natural thing that happens when a new person joins. So you as the manager have to take special care, as well as assign a particular person who's their buddy, somebody who you trust. And then you both kind of help navigate the person into the culture and into the work. And just assume that you're going to be actually spending more time with them than you normally would once they're up to speed. That's kind of how I would see sort of hiring in this environment.
Let me ask the flip side of that question. There are several companies that have had to do significant cuts in their staff complement, whether by layoff, redundancy, or where they have had to make salary adjustments across the board. So salaries are cut. I've heard salaries cut as much as 75%. Now, in a situation like that, we talked about these meetings and we talked about hangout spots and so, but some people are saying, but when I have to have these difficult conversations to say that, listen, half of the staff gone home and we still have the work to get done. How do we have these conversations during this COVID time, and how do we conduct those kinds of meetings? Lysandra?
Yeah, I have to raise my hand for that one because actually the Airbnb CEO came out with a letter. It was published publicly in the past 2 days, a letter that he wrote to his employees because he has to lay off 25% of his staff. And it is the model for doing compassionate, honest, transparent layoffs and redundancies. So he started with heart and humanity. This was a really hard decision. We love our team, right? This is the reason that we had to make this very difficult decision, because the travel and hospitality has changed fundamentally, and it's changed for the long term, not the short term. So the second thing is to explain and be transparent and honest about why. Why are you doing this? And then the third thing he did was lay out step by step how they decided which team members to lay off. He actually said, we're trying to match the future of the company to the team that we keep on board. So if we have to get rid of this division, unfortunately, we're going to have to get rid of the team in that division. For example, they were going into transportation. They've let go of their transportation department. So they explained exactly their decision-making process so that it was transparent, it was accessible, and the team members couldn't argue with it. And so he's being praised for the style of a compassionate, heartfelt redundancy process.
And it's interesting because you mentioned earlier over communicating and transparency, and our and Dr. Hale, you know, a lot of how we did things in the past. So for example, when you're laying off somebody in Jamaica, the law doesn't say that you need to explain anything to them. You just proceed with a layoff. So we are in a different time now where we can't just write that one-line letter. we talked earlier in an earlier show about compassion. So compassion actually comes in at this time. So Dr. Hale, as we're wrapping up, you've heard Lysandra's points on what was done with Airbnb, and we encourage our viewers to find it online. It's been circulating heavily. And what is very clear about that, this is a large organization and it's significant cuts. And it was about laying out so everybody understood the decision-making process. So no matter how you felt about it, you felt like you were treated fairly. Dr. Hale, I'd love your views on how we communicate at this time. And we're talking multi-generational communication. How do we handle it as leaders now?
Well, I always believe in transparency. You know, I like to be upfront. So I like people to understand why we did things. As Lysandra said, if people understand why, in fact, sometimes they're able to show you another way that you yourself didn't see, because people have different experiences. But it is important to explain to them, this is all the money that we have. This is where we're going to go, and we don't think this fits. But how can we help you? I remember I spoke to you about the training. You can have them assessed so that they can actually be certified in the areas of competencies that they have. You can try and make contact with your vendors to see if there are any openings or your partners. Are there any openings for these kinds of skills? Because this is a good person. You need to understand the very important thing when you're hiring is to hire in terms of compatibility, in terms of the core values, and also in terms of the culture. Those things are very important. If you have a mismatch, then right away it's going to show up, and you need to get those people need to go somewhere else. So you look back and say, this has been my core team. They have the same values I have. Let me look for other companies where I think they'll be compatible, or try and help them to get the skills and the certification they need so that they can go off to do something else. The world is flat now in terms of this with the software. So you can find, remember I talked about superstructures. So if you set about trying to find an opportunity somewhere else in the world, and with a number of people dying and those skills opening up, you may actually be able to place those people, help those, point them in the direction where there are jobs or where there are new openings. Another good thing too, as you talked about it, Nevada, they use those projects, what they call micro credentials. They're not micro credentials in terms of learning, but they're for internships. You can have silver internships too. So you could say to your partners, take this person as a silver intern, see if you all are compatible, and then give them projects down for now. And in the interim, they would also be getting references for the next person to say, while this happened, I was actually doing these various projects. Sometimes it's for free, but it keeps you in the game, and it gives you another reference, another referee who can say, yes, this is a solid person, and these are the core values, and they're an asset.
Yes. So what I'm now, because notwithstanding everything that's going on, it is a time of opportunity.
Yes.
It's a time that we are relearning and unlearning, and we are asking ourselves some very different questions. So in the show, we've talked about the bottom line, and we do recognize that the bottom line is affected, influenced, and in fact based on the performance and productivity of your people. So even as we're going through and we're pivoting and we're coming up with new ways, the communication, the transparency with our people is still important. It's even more important now. We have to train ourselves to communicate in a different way. Some of us are used to a vibe. You walk in and you can give some jokes in the meeting and stuff. Now you're doing it on Zoom, and your child is popping up in the video to ask you, is it later yet? This is some of the realities of this new world that we are in. And I keep going back. I love what Lysandra says, that we are living and breathing an experiment. And usually scientists take a long period of time to determine all the factors they're looking at in an experiment. And this is one that we've just been thrust into over the last 8 to 9 weeks. So viewers, we are joined today by Lysandra Rickards, who is co-founder and CEO of Soul Career, Dr. Carolyn Hale, who is CEO of Etalon Global Solutions Limited. Again, they have provided the material, and you can contact us at PSOJ at SME at psoj.org. Nevada Poe is still with us, Nevada. What an interesting and educational conversation. And as much as I had gone through the information myself, hearing the experts go through that example that Lysandra gave, just reminding us of what the Airbnb CEO did. So I'm just bringing you back in for us to kind of wrap up. You're not always teasing Nevada and call him Harvard. And I'm sure
before Rochelle, just two last questions we did in the poll.
Yes.
Have you been more productive since working from home? 53% said yes, 33% said no, 13% said about the same. But here's the other interesting thing. Have you thought about letting workers go for being unproductive at home? 40% said yes, 60% said no. So we're not ready yet to just let people go into the thing. We are willing and wanting to figure out ways to make it work. And I think there was a lot of learning here. Carolyn, both Carolyn and Lysandra was very, very good in terms of, in fact, your mind is kind of boggled.
Yes. So that's what's happening to me right now. My mind is buzzing. Buzzing with the challenges of this new time, but even more so with the opportunities for how we learn as workers, how we learn as managers, because we are in a learning zone in this new paradigm. And you know, it would be interesting when we do that poll again, and just repeat that last poll. Because we're going to have to do it again in another couple of weeks.
Just see where people are. Have you thought about letting workers go for being unproductive at home? 40% said yes, 60% said no. So it means that managers are willing to try to make the at-home work. So there is we can take heart in that.
Yes. Because when we would have asked these kinds of questions 6 weeks ago, people were still trying to figure out how they even got connectivity at home. This has now become the new norm. And it will be interesting how that 60-40 changes over the next couple of weeks. But how it changes as we even come out of this time, because there's going to be a time where we come out of it that this was just the time. So any last words from you, Nevada?
People are really appreciating the show, Rochelle. I have to tell you, a lot of the SMEs who find that they're getting advice. I just got a message from somebody saying their head is also exploding. So we'll just keep going, keep trying as the PSOJ to outreach and make sure that during this, at the end of this, we have a group of SMEs that are more business educated and more business knowledgeable than we were getting into it. So good luck, stay strong, everybody, and we're here for you.
Yes. So thank you again, viewers, for joining us for episode 7 of COVIDCastJA. Today, we talked about keeping workers motivated and productive while at home. And we were joined by a panel of experts, Dr. Carolyn Hale, Lysandra Rickards, and they took us through discussions of the future of work, keeping your team members motivated and engaged. Lysandra looked at it from the manager side of the business, from the worker side of the business, because we also have to recognize that as workers in the business, this is also an opportunity to show yourself purposeful and indispensable to the business with how your attitude, and you know what I always say, your attitude always trumps aptitude. And for your aptitude, you have a great opportunity right now to get some training. There's lots of free training online. So what we're looking at is a time of change, a time though of change that comes with opportunities for us to move into this new way of working. So we encourage you to please email us at sme@psoj.org. Send in your questions, send in your comments, share the show, and we look forward to seeing you again next week, Thursday, at the same time, 4 o'clock, where we'll be joined by another panel of experts. Please follow our page, follow us on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, and we would love to hear from you. We also want to get from you other topics that you want us to delve into on our show, because this is really our time for the PSOJ to be sharing with our community. We do recognize that we have an opportunity to emerge on the other side of COVID, a better Jamaica, a more productive and efficient Jamaica, and we want to help you and your business to come out better on the other side of COVID. So join us again next week for another episode of COVIDCastJA. See you then.